All right, guys, Nick Horton here with another episode of Samurai Strength. This is episode number 2, still in beta phase, so y'all have to just bear with me. But in today's episode, we're going to cover things like eating cake out of the trash can. I ain't fucking around. And Oreos. Sniffing Oreos off of a kid's hand and why that's a creepy thing to do and you should not be doing it. We're also going to talk about deadlifts, and we're going to talk about warming up routines, etc. I got some good questions from you guys out there in the world. So easy, quick warm-up routines, by the way. That was the specification. But before we get into all of that wild shit, I do want to mention that every episode of Samurai Strength is sponsored by Weightlifting Academy, and you can go there and get a whole bunch of free shit at weightliftingacademy.com. It's a free registration. Sign in. You get free stuff. Merry and joyfulness occurs after that. There are unicorns dancing, glitter falling from the sky. It's amazing. All of that for free, man. All you got to do is go to weightliftingacademy.com and sign up. So you can go do that and then come back and then we'll talk. News, I still want to reiterate that there is a seminar/certification coming up in Portland, Oregon in April, the end of April. And I want you to be there. It's going to be awesome. It's called the Super Total. Again, you can go to weightliftingacademy.com, click certs, and it'll be underneath that tab. And it's both a 2-day, all day, every day certification process like you kind of expect, plus an entire 90-day course after that where you and I are going to deep dive into every single tiny point that we went over, plus a whole lot more stuff that we'd never be able to get to in just 2 days. So that's a huge extravaganza, wild experience, and I definitely want you to be there. Go check out Super Total, the Super Total certification at weightliftingacademy.com, and hopefully you're going to be there in Portland too. By the way, we do have a scholarship option available in case that's something that you need to look at. I've had a lot of people emailing me and notifying me about interest in that, but kind of worried about what that means and if they're like taking advantage of me or something, which I really appreciate. I appreciate that we got a really good group of people here, honest, good people, and that's a great thing. But do not be wary of taking that scholarship option if that is what you honestly can do. If you have a set amount that's going to work for you and that's all you got, but you're dedicated, you are serious about your barbell education, about becoming a better athlete or a better coach, whatever direction it is that you're heading, then don't hold that back based on some, either on the one end sense of pridefulness getting in the way, or on the other some sense that you're like doing me some horrible disservice or something. That's not the reason. I wouldn't have put it up there if that was the case. I put it up there precisely because a substantially high number of the best athletes and coaches I've ever worked with were struggling financially when I first met them, and I had to, kind of cut them a deal one way or another and find another way. It's sort of like if I ran a restaurant, it'd be like you doing the dishes after dinner in order to be able to get your dinner, but I'm not going to not feed you. You know what I mean? So if that's something that you need, please don't hesitate to take that. I do appreciate your concern for my well-being. That's very nice of you. But the scholarship option exists for a reason, and then we'll just talk about what that entails after you've come on board. But most certainly, if you are dead serious about your athleticism or your coaching career, then I think it would be a very good thing for you to be there. It's going to be a hell of an experience. Again, 2 full days, front to back, plus an entire 90-day course on top of that where we're going to go into this stuff. It's an interactive course, so you and I are going to actually be interacting the whole time. So that's that. That's the Super Total thing. I do want to get that whole scholarship thing out of the way. I might do a whole video on that just to go over the details of what I mean by it, but I just want you to know that is available, so don't discount that as though it doesn't exist. I think a lot of people, they look at it, they go, oh man, that's just not where I'm at right now, so I can't do it, and that's silly. So anyway, enough of the news. Let's go into the meat and potatoes of this. So here's what I want to do for at least the foreseeable future of these broadcasts. Is I want to do in the beginning kind of a lesson / story / sermon thing. Both my grandfathers were preachers, so I'm not afraid of the word sermon. and give you a chance to kind of get an in-depth look at something, but in a fun way, usually through some kind of a story. That's where the eating out of a trash can thing is going to come in. And the whole Oreo thing is weird. Crazy shit, but it's a true story. Got some true stories to tell you. Then I'll go into the question and answer session, which is all about your questions. And I'll do to the best of my ability, I will answer your questions. And so that's how the format's going to work, at least for now. Who knows? Maybe something crazy will happen, and I'll have an elephant dancing on a Bosu ball at some point. I'm hoping I can do that. Or at least a guy in an elephant costume. That would be good enough. I'd take that. That'd be fine. So let's go into it. Let's go into the Samurai Strength story time. That's what it is. We'll call it Samurai Strength story time. Today's story, friends, is about an online fitness contest, fat loss contest, that I'm not going to name because I'm not into the whole, starting a flame war thing. However, it's indicative. It's not really, about this one particular institution that's doing this stuff. It's indicative of, I think, a whole slew of the way in which a lot of these online contests, and offline, quite frankly, in a lot of clubs, especially a lot of CrossFit clubs, the way they run things, and why it may not turn out the way that they want it to. They didn't have bad intentions going in. I'm sure they had good intentions, but it turned out that it caused some crazy ass fucking behaviors among its people. And I'm going to relate all of that to two things: grades in school, and then finally to barbell training. And so that's what's coming. So here's the basic story. Tamara, my lady, likes to fuck with people. I'm sure you figured that out by now. We might call her an experimental psychologist. She likes to see what, things she says can get what responses out of different people. And most of the time it's nice. Most of the time it's a good thing. Every once in a while, she can't help herself. So she'll sign up for lots of online courses and online challenges and things like that, just to kind of see how it goes and just to see what's going on there. And the results are often hilarious. So this is what happened when she signed up to an online fitness / fat loss challenge fairly recently. I don't know, in the last 6 months or something like that. So she signs in. She's kind of going along with it, for the most part. She's not really playing the game. They set it up like a big old game, right? Like they've got all these points, and it's really complicated. I mean, like, it makes Monopoly and Risk and games like that, or Dungeons and Dragons, look like they have no rules whatsoever. This one had just tons and tons and tons of ways in which you can get different points for this and different points for that and whatever. And you largely had to add them all yourself, right? It's not like it's automatic, and you have to go in and add all your damn points. And in addition to this crazy point scheme, they also have no clear goal other than just getting lots of points. So it's like any other game. You win by getting lots of points. That's basically it. Rather than, say, our 21-day squat challenge, which is another way to run a challenge, which I will use as sort of a counterbalance here, where there is a very clear goal, which is you want more weight on your barbell. That's really it. That's it. You win if you increased the weight of your squat. It's really simple, right? There's no fucking points or any of that other stuff. Those are the points, right? The actual weight on the barbell. That's not at all how this contest works. What you weigh, irrelevant. How much fat you're actually losing, irrelevant. How much muscle you're gaining, irrelevant. How much weight you're lifting on your exercises, irrelevant. So in other words, all the big core things you might actually want to track, not tracking. Those are not really the key points. The key points are, what foods did you eat? Did you exercise, but not like what are the results of that exercise, et cetera, et cetera. So in other words, the people start treating, inevitably, right? I mean, you created a game, they signed up for the game, they paid money to play the game, so they're playing the game, right? So what happens? They prioritize getting points and following along with sort of the arbitrariness of that over all of the other things I just mentioned, which could have been their original goals coming in. We probably are going to guess here that their goal coming into this game, their real goal, their deep goal, the reason why they were willing to pay money had nothing to do with getting lots of points and had everything to do with some other fitness, health-related goal in their real life. And the vast majority of these people, it was obviously weight loss. Not even just fat loss. I'm talking just full-on weight loss, because they fit into that category of Americans that over 30% of Americans are in, where they are obese. In other words, if they're going to get healthier, inevitably the weight's going to go down. So, you know, you can't be a 5'4" woman at 230 pounds and ripped at the same time. That's not possible. You can't be shredded at 230 pounds, even as a man, unless you're like over 6 feet tall most of the time. Like, that's not going to happen. You're going to do a whole lot of steroids for that. So if you weigh 230 pounds and you're a female and you're 5'4", obviously you need to lose weight. But that wasn't in the goal. Not the maybe in her goal, but it's not in this. So because of this setup, they set the game up to be all points, right? It's just points, 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 just like grades in school, right? They don't necessarily have anything to do with what you know, but you can get straight A's and be an idiot. That's perfectly possible in a lot of courses, right? I mean, you take easy courses from easy teachers, you're going to get straight A's, right? And then the other guy over here, he's taking hard courses from hard teachers. He's getting C's and B's, but he knows a hell of a lot more than you, and he's able to kick your ass at just about everything. Which one's more important? Depends on what your goals are, right? So if you came into a contest like this and your goals are, I want to get lots of points. That's my goal. I want to win this particular game. Just like when you play Monopoly, your only actual goal is to win the game and to have fun while you're doing it. You don't have some bigger life goal that's attached to your playing Monopoly, I hope. Because of that, then they start responding exactly as one would respond to any other kind of crazy situation like this. And what that means is that they're very worried about what's going to lose them points and what's going to gain them points. So again, weight loss, which was the goal for these two people who I'm going to discuss. I don't know their names or anything. It's just these are people who were responding in the forums. Their primary goal, and they were explicit about it, was they wanted to lose weight, and they're pretty big. They're both big people who really wanted to lose weight. That's why they signed up. They don't know a lot about fitness and health, so they're pretty new to that stuff. So they're just relying on this, you know, the information here in this site to be their guide. Otherwise, it sounds pretty reasonable. That's certainly how it was marketed. And in and of itself, that's not a crazy idea, right? There's plenty of situations under which that would make sense. So they're just saying, hey, look, I signed up. I'm just going to trust your advice. I'm going to go with it. So you say this game's going to work. I'm going to use it, right? So they're hyper-focused on the point values of different things. They've got different points for different kinds of food you can eat. Other kinds of food you can eat are going to take points away, right? Because they've just decided some foods are worth lots of points that are good and some foods are not. Clearly, anybody who does know a lot about fitness and health would probably argue with someone else who knows about fitness and health about which food should really deserve what point values, whether or not certain foods should be negative or positive, and all of that kind of thing. There's plenty on that list that was in the, like, what the fuck are you talking about category. Why is this a negative and why is that a positive? And you might disagree with me on some and completely agree with me on others, etc. And that's because, of course, it was arbitrary. Like any game, you've arbitrarily set up the point values, just almost out of nowhere. And so they don't know that. They're just going to go by whatever it says. And of course, anything that looks like a dessert, like a cake or an Oreo cookie, is certainly on the negative list for these people because, again, just strict weight loss isn't the point for the game. It's just the points that are the point. You could clearly lose weight if all you did was eat 3 Oreo cookies a day and that's all you ever did. You'd lose weight, right? You wouldn't be healthy, but you'd certainly lose weight. Different game, right? So here's what happened. It creates this fanaticism among people about the points themselves. So here they are, not losing weight at all. I mean, they're not losing weight. That sucks. And yet they're being hyper strict on themselves about stuff that's quite silly. One of them, at a certain point, got so fanatic that he was going into the trash can and pulling out a piece of cake in the middle of the night, just kind of nibble on it, that he had thrown away earlier because he knew it was bad for him. So he said, all right, this cake I can't have because it's negative point values. I can't have this slice of cake, so I'm going to throw it away, and that's my guarantee that I won't touch it. But a combination of addictive behavior along with a crazy game that perpetuates addictive behaviors and the worst sides of them gets this dude up at 2, 3 in the morning to come in and eat cake out of the trash can that he'd thrown away earlier. That's some messed up shit. In your own house, you're eating out of the trash. Really? That could have been avoided. I'm just saying. Another woman, she's like a teacher or something, there's a kid on the playground had eaten a bunch of Oreo cookies, and they're kind of mashed up on the kid's hands. A young kid, kindergarten age kid. And you know how kids eat. They're just covered in the food that they're trying to eat. It never really gets in their belly. I don't know how they get any nutrients whatsoever. It's kind of amazing because it always ends up on the outside of their body and not on the inside. They must kind of osmosify into their skin. So this woman, she comes up and she's describing how she was sniffing lustfully the Oreo cookie off this kid's hand, right? Imagine if you're that kid. You're like, what the fuck you doing, teacher? What is wrong with you? Why don't you just go get one of the Oreo cookies? They're right over there. Why you got to smell my fucking hand, right? The kid understood that's stupid. If you really need an Oreo cookie that bad, you just eat a damn Oreo cookie. It's not that big a deal. And if it's really important that you don't eat an Oreo cookie, then you shouldn't be sniffing it either, right? One of those two is perfectly reasonable. This weird middle ground where you're sniffing a kid's hand that's covered in Oreo cookie, like leftovers, that's weird. That's some weird shit, right? You shouldn't be doing that. So what lessons are here? Well, I think to help drive this point home, I want to discuss another quick story about when I was in graduate school. This relates to this earlier idea that a great way to get good grades, to guarantee that you're going to come out of school with really good grades and still be a moron, is to only take courses with easy teachers who grade easy. They exist. They're all over the place, especially with like grade inflation right now in college is rampant. And so the idea of being a B student seems insane to most people now. They can't fathom it. They have to get A's, have to get A's, have to get A's. In other words, it's just like this other game, right? Where it's the points that matter, not the purpose of being in school, which is to develop skill sets that you're going to be able to use, right? Grades don't tell you anything important because they're arbitrarily set, just like the point values on those foods, that you can lose tons of weight eating only 800 calories a day of junk food. Because it's only 800 calories a day. There's no possible way to gain weight on 800 calories a day. You're going to lose weight. You're going to get smaller. It's going to happen. It's not the healthiest way to do it, but it's still technically true, right? And any good weight loss program functions under that basic paradigm where at some point or another there needs to be a deficit. And it's complicated because proteins burn at a higher rate than carbohydrates. So it's always better, even forget health, just from a thermodynamic standpoint, it's always better to have a higher protein diet when you're on a diet than not, just for that alone, that you can actually eat more food, a little bit higher total calories going in, and still lose more weight than if you had the exact same amount of calories coming in, but for carbohydrates. However, that's kind of minor. So if you drastically lower the calories, right, like down to somewhere to 800 to 1200 range, most people will lose weight no matter what they're eating. And it's just they're going to do it better if they focus on the protein. So there's that, right? That you can set up a game where the calorie counts are irrelevant. The key features of thermodynamics and how it functions in your body are irrelevant to the game. And it's just a random point value on a food. And that's what gives you your A or your B or your C or whatever, right? That's how that fitness in quotes, game is set up. And that's how most degrees are set up also in college. That your class, you walk into class, and there's going to be an arbitrary point value. It's on the syllabus, right? You do these things, you get the points, and you don't do these things, you don't get the points, and you can fail out of class even though you know everything in the class, right? It's very possible for you to do that. You can actually fail a class you know everything about. So it doesn't tell you anything about what you know. What it does tell you is what you've done to appease the syllabus. There are reasons why you might want to do that. Obviously, you don't want to fail out of school, and you want to come out of school with decent enough grades that it's going to help you go to the next level, whatever that is for you, especially if you're looking at going to graduate school. I went to graduate school, and you're not allowed in most grad programs to get, let's say, lower than a B average, right? If you get lower than a B average, then they'll kick you out, basically. So there's some incentive, to keep your grades up. But that's not the point. And what I loved about mathematics and why I went into graduate school for mathematics is that it's not set up just because of the personalities of the people in it, like most other degree programs. They really only care about what you can do. It's almost exactly like sports. So I have this one professor who is universally considered in the top 2 or 3 hardest professors at the school, and I took just about every possible class I could take from him for years on end. Sometimes that didn't work out so good. I got in over my head. Most of the time, it worked out really great, and I got decent grades. But I never really cared. I didn't give a shit about my grades, and he respected that. He thought I was a weird dude. He's really quiet and reserved, and here I am, this loud, crazy guy. But we got along pretty good, actually. There's this one girl, though, who was in a course of mine that I was taking with him at one point, who was hyper-focused on her grades, just fanatically hyper-focused. And on the first midterm, she got like a D or something. It wasn't good. And she goes to the professor, and she's crying. I mean, literally in there just weeping and crying. And he's like, well, if you knew more of the material and you're able to show me that, then you would have gotten a higher grade. That's pretty much all there is to it, And he's like, your final grade isn't even determined by this. He has this crazy system where he's almost arbitrarily making the point scheme so crazy that you can get an A by just getting an A on one thing. If you just turn in all your homework, you'll probably come out with an A or a B. If you, it's really hard to do though, because he has a shit ton of homework. Like a lot every single day. He's like Nemesis style homework. Or if you do a really good on the final, you could have done 0 points on everything else in the whole class, but you got an A on the final, good enough, because he believes you at that point. And he's like, look, I understand some people suck at tests, so you can just do the homework and show me that you're really good at the material when you're not in a freak out mode, and then you can get an A. Or you can just do the tests and get really good grades on the tests, and because you're somebody who's just, you'll do the homework, but you're not interested in you had to type it up and all this other kind of stuff, and to give it to him. And he's like, you don't want to go through that rigmarole. I get that, but you show me you know how to do the material, and so we're good to go. The point being, he was trying very hard to make sure his class was about what you knew and what you could do. That if you know this material, if you really got it, at least a big enough subset of the material that he considers important, you're going to do fine. If not, you weren't. This girl did not like this because she's used to gaming classes. She's used to that fitness program's style of points where it really has nothing to do with your actual fitness goals in the long run. It just has to do with the particular game you're playing today. And that's what she thought of school as. It's just a big game to play where you get lots of grades. And that was what it was. She wasn't particularly good at math, quite frankly. She wasn't very good at it. And, perfectly nice person, but that wasn't really her thing. So it's inevitable that she tended to focus on going, to the teachers that were much easier, that graded easier, that had kind of an easy game to play in their grading systems, versus teachers like this who are trying very hard to make their grades closer to reality. Again, similar to how I try to do with our 21-day squat challenge. You win or lose. It's pass-fail. It's real simple. If you gain extra poundage on your squat, it's pass. You don't, fail. That's it. It's really simple. And of course, there are other things that we might try to do with that 21-day squat challenge. Teach you how to squat, for one thing. I like it for beginners, quite frankly, because it teaches them how to squat. Of course, they're probably going to gain weight on their squat because they're beginners. That's not really the point for them. It's, are they a much better squatter after squatting every single day for 21 days? Yeah, they certainly are. So for me, I might have like some extra goals on top, and that's similar to what I do with fat loss clients. If I have a client coming in and they're really obese, my goal is to get them down to a lower weight. That's it. The weight on the scale absolutely matters. It matters big time to them, and it matters to me. It probably matters to their doctor. But I also have ulterior motives that along the way, so long as we're meeting that goal, they're going to learn a whole lot of other really cool stuff along the way, right? They're going to learn about exercise, and they're going to learn about strength training, and they're going to learn about what foods are doing better things in your body than other kinds of foods and all that kind of shit. But we don't fuck around. The grades are about, are they or are they not losing the weight that they themselves want to lose? So all of this crazy shit aside, eating cake out of a trash can, sniffing Oreos off a kid's hands, gaming your grades in school, and all this other just idiotic shit that people do. We all have something in our life that we've probably done that's equivalent to eating cake out of a trash can. I keep looking over here because that's my trash can. That all of this is unfortunately hyper related to our barbell training, because it's very easy to not have a clearly defined goal. A really easy one to make that you could like just write down, one sentence, like a thesis statement. What is the point here? What are you trying to do? If it's the squats, well, it's the weight on the bar. That's what matters, right? If it's your snatches, then it's how much weight you can lift in a contest legal manner. That's usually the goal I have for my athletes is, are you improving on the snatch in a way that would still be legal in a contest? And usually we enforce that people are going into competitions, even if they're not sanctioned competitions, just for funsies, ones that we run, and we run them all the time. It still sets up a nice little environment where you can test and see, did I improve for real, not just get a bunch of random points that are like, participation points. I'm glad you're participating. I want you to actually reach the goals you say you want. Reaching goals via building new skills is what a real self-esteem is based upon. Not just constantly being told that I'm so awesome because this piece of paper says I'm awesome because there's points on this piece of paper that some other dude arbitrarily came up with that I was able to somehow get. That's cool and all, but it's hard to feel all that great about yourself in the long run when that's the case. And this girl is like that. This girl I went to grad school with, like she's definitely like that. Like she did not feel so good about herself, and I think there's a good reason for that, because she was looking around and thinking, here's all these other people, these guys and gals, who are much better at mathematics than I am, and yet we're all supposed to be on the same level. She got better grades than a lot of the other people I know who are now getting PhDs and doing other really cool shit in mathematics. Didn't have as good of grades as her, but they're way better, and it's provable, right? What's nice about math is that you can show for real whether you're good or not. You don't have to have a grade. That's irrelevant. Just like sports. You can have straight A's in PE. That doesn't mean you're going to be a great athlete, right? So that's the parable for the day. I've already gone way over time, but I'm going to go into the question and answer portion. Maybe this is going to be a longer show than I expected. Whatever. It's fun. It's fun for me. If it's fun for you, that's cool too, by the way. I'm back with my Santa Claus mug. All right, so I got two questions. These are real short, no big deal. First question relates to warming up. So Eric, who writes for Weightlifting Academy and is an integral member of the Weightlifting Academy community, was asking around, hey, what are some great warm-up routines that I can do that are fast, that get me going quick? I don't always have a lot of time, that are still going to really work well, because some of the warm-up routines that Tamara and I put up in our white belt program and on Weightlifting Academy are a little long, a little complex, because they're designed on purpose to be more than just a warm-up. They're kind of supposed to make you more mobile and build up some strength in areas of your body you don't normally get into and all of that kind of stuff. We like an extensive warm-up routine if you have the time. However, sometimes you don't have the time. Sometimes it's going to be required that you bust your ass in the gym as fast as you possibly can to get your ass out, right? Because you got to go work or something else. So many possibilities here. My general broad overview advice on a really fast super duper warm-up routine that's going to be good for you is pick 1 or 2 total body movements with a barbell, kettlebell, dumbbell, doesn't really make a difference, that you can go through at kind of a slow motion pace, and just go through the motion of, say, a barbell squat, right, and then maybe with a press at the top, and then go down slow. All right, so wild amount of technical difficulties. I started a second one here in order to see if it was going to work, and it started fucking up on me almost immediately. So I'm going to talk fast, see if I can get through this, and then I'm just going to splice together the original with this guy as a whole video. This is what we get for going live. Crazy shit's going to happen. That's real life. So the first of the questions was about warming up. What's a fast, quick way to warm up? And the answer there was pick 1 lower body movement, 1 upper body movement, and maybe something else to round it out. Go slow, controlled, do a few rounds of that. You're probably going to be fine. Not a big deal. Romanian deadlifts seem to be behind the list, as do things like push-ups, eyes wise and tees, whatever. Anything with a band is usually good. A second option, which I throw out there, was take a hot shower. I know that sounds a little crazy, but it's actually true. Your body does not know the difference between a really hot external environment and then you're creating a hot internal environment via warming up. It doesn't actually know the difference, really, so it works almost exactly the same. So as much as it sounds like I'm joking when I say go take a hot shower, I'm not actually. It really works. Second question is about deadlifts, and this is kind of a fun one. Why the fuck are deadlifts so heavy? Meaning, why is it so hard to pull the same weight in a deadlift sometimes off the floor than it is to just squat that weight? Now, not everybody feels this way. Some people are substantially better at deadlifts. But even at their maxes, they're going to understand what you mean. That a maximum deadlift versus a maximum squat, they feel very different, right? And they feel different in large part because they're going in opposite directions. You aren't starting the squat in the one part of the squat that we think of as the actual pushing of the weight, right? All the rest of it's set up. You walk the squat backwards first out of the rack, then you go down slowly, and then finally, once you're down in the hole, you finally get to come back up again. And that's when the squat like really starts, right? Officially. So what does that mean? That means you've given yourself an enormous amount of proprioception. You've set your body up. You've primed it neurologically in order to do well. Not to mention, if you're like a lot of Olympic lifters, you learn how to bounce out of the hole a little bit, and that helps for certain. The deadlift doesn't have any of that. You are starting as it's just like if you were going to start the squat out of rock bottom. Like you set at the pins low in the rack, you kind of squat yourself down in there, get all real tight, and then are you going to lift as much weight that way as you do in a regular squat? No, you're not going to. It's not going to happen because you don't have that added benefit of like a lead-in, basically. The deadlift doesn't have that. Deadlift is totally fucking you. So deadlifts I think of as like a big, giant joke. It's like a huge setup for a bad joke when somebody misses the deadlift, because more often than not, this is what happens, right? They run around the room, they're screaming and yelling, they're banging on their chest, maybe take some, smelling salts or something like that, and then they grab that bar, and then they're growling, they're screaming, they're yelling, and nothing happens. Not a damn thing. That's funny, right? It's hilarious because you have this huge setup, and just nothing at the end. Whereas with the squat, you got all this other stuff going on, right? They walk out and, they go down and they try to get up and then they usually kind of stop somewhere in the middle and then they crash, right? That's very often what happens in a big squat. Big squat miss, that is. And so it's a lot less crazy. You were ready for it the whole time. It might be an exciting adventure novel, but it's not a good joke. Whereas the deadlift is like a good joke. Probably why I like it so much. So those are the quickie questions that we had today. Again, the lesson is don't focus on the points and the arbitrary bullshit. focus on the only serious thing that your goal can be tested by. So if it's a squat, you want a bigger squat, then you have to just, the only thing that matters is, are you gaining weight on the squat, or are you at least gaining on those things that are clearly going to gain weight on your squat in the future. So like good technique, for instance, right? Like you squat right now with horrible technique, well, you're never going to get a big squat. So that's preliminary. There's lots of things that will count as preliminaries to you getting a bigger squat or losing lots of weight or whatever it is that your goal is. But you got to keep your eye there on the real goal itself, right? This is why I tend to prefer somebody being in a sport, even if they're not, they don't think of themselves as a serious athlete, but join and play a sport anyway and train for it seriously and eat for your sport and all that other kind of stuff, because training and eating to be healthy is too esoteric. It doesn't matter that you're a motivated human being and all of that other kind of shit. At some point or another, that's going to break down. You can't stick with that. It's too weird, and you start creating arbitrary little point values that don't really get you towards that goal. Whereas if you instead have health as a side effect of something else that you're doing, that like playing a sport, then it doesn't have to be a sport, but some sports are nice because they're so well defined. And through the process of training to get better at your sport and to increase whatever it is, like maybe your sport is sprinting, right? You want to increase how fast you're able to move from point A to point B. That's going to embed within it all kinds of other work that has to happen, right? All the preliminary stuff in order to be able to get that. And by doing all that preliminary stuff, you'll be healthier in most cases, barring, you know, some of the drug use that gets happening in like more high-end sports and, you know, all that kind of stupid shit. So as long as you're training not to be a professional athlete, sports can be good for you. If you're training to be a pro athlete, though, sports are usually pretty bad for you, and I don't really advise that. They're pretty horrible. So anyway, technical difficulties aside, there's another episode. Go to weightliftingacademy.com. You can ask any question you want in the chat room there. You can get a hold of me on some social media channels. I don't check them as often as I should, but I do check them periodically. Then you can ask me there too, and I will answer whatever questions you got on air. All right, see you guys on the flip side. I'm going to see if I can put together this video in a way that makes sense.